So we're going to go over the font pairing activity. All right, here's your simple steps. One is to choose a short quote. Two is to choose a font pairing technique from the presentation. So see the PDF in the folder for guidance. Choose a maximum of 2 fonts to use in your font pairing. And you're going to design a quick typography piece that using the fonts pairing and quote. 8.5, 11 document size, so just letter size. Use any colors you want, or black and white. Doesn't matter to me. It's more about the fonts than it is the colors. And you can see the example in the type folder. So if you scroll all the way down to your files, inside your typography folder, all right, is the type pairing sample. Okay, and this is what I'm looking at. You're going to pick 2 fonts. Now, this has more than 2 fonts, but I just wanted to give an example in terms of kind of typography art. You can get some really cool examples as well if you just simply Google and do typography posters. Okay, and just look at some of the different type posters that they're here. You could also look up quote posters, so typography quote posters, another good one. All right, and you can get some pretty cool things that way. So again, this is the type of thing we're looking at where you're going to limit yours to two fonts, okay, and you're going to base it on the pairings. So if you look at the pairing handout, you're going to pick one of these. There's how many? I think there's 10 or 11, okay? Go through, figure out which one you want to choose. You do not have to use the fonts that are listed here. This is just what this person used in their presentation. All right, but you pair all caps with the script. Scroll all the way down here. Pair different but similar styles. Okay, wide and narrow. Now you've gone through the how to choose a font presentation, so you should have a little bit of an idea here. The quote that you choose is going to guide, all right, the fonts that you use. If you choose a more serious quote, you're going to use more serious fonts. All right, maybe sans serif, maybe something heavy. All right, if it's a more fun font, you might choose something fun like these two. Okay, and again, you don't have to use the fonts that they have here, but that's what you're going to do. You're going to pick a pairing. So you're going to say, okay, I'm going to use different but similar fonts. All right, and you're going to go through and try to find 2 fonts that are different but have a little bit of similarity to them. Okay, um, this will be your guideline. Okay, I would suggest going over some research, visual research. It's going to be helpful to kind of see how others are laying things out. All right. But that's how you're going to work this. You're going to do this in Illustrator. That's the easiest thing to do. You're going to go to your Illustrator. All right. You're going to go create new. You can use print. You can use letter. Remember, by default, it goes to points. Change that to inches, 8.5 by 11, so it makes sense. Hit create, and I want you to make sure you either hit Command R or View and go to Show Rulers. Okay, I always do Command R; it's just easier. And make sure you're at 8.5 by 11. All right, the worst thing you want to do is not have it sized right. All right, I would suggest that if you're going to pick your quote, you could use part of a quote, you could use a whole quote. Really doesn't matter. But you want to think about how you're going to lay it out. Don't just lay your text out, okay, and center it, okay. That's going to be really boring. We want to really play with this. We want to really challenge ourselves a little bit. You're going to get the whole class to work on this, okay, a whole class worth of time. All right, so 3+ hours to work on this should be more than enough time. All right, you want to play with the typography. Okay, remember that in Illustrator, there's 2 ways to type. You can drag a box, and that's going to keep the box is going to be limited to what's inside. Okay, so I will have a box here, and this is just scaling based on this. Okay, for quote posters, things like that, I find it easier just to click. The reason I do that is when you click, you have the ability to just shift and scale the type. If you draw on a box, you do not have that ability. When you shift and scale, it's just scaling the box. It's not scaling the type. Okay, this is really good for paragraphs of type, but you really want to play with, if I was going to do, let's just do a quick quote for a second. Okay, so let's say it's just don't. All right, I'm going to do worry in another word, and then I'm going to do another one here. All right, then I'm going to do another one here. Okay, so don't worry, be happy. And let's say I went into my font pairings, all right, and I picked what I wanted. So it's a fun, type of thing. So I'm going to do, let me pick, I like pair skinny and chunky. So I'm going to pair a skinny font with a chunky font, okay? And so for this, I want this to be skinny. So I'm going to go through, and I'm going to do this very quickly because I don't want to spend a ton of time doing this. I just want to do a demo for you guys. Find something that's kind of fun. does not have an apostrophe. You're going to find that that happens. Notice I said I was going to go quick, and I just can't do one fast. So that's not bad. Okay. Don't, and that would be my thin. And now I'm going to pick my heavy. And for this, I'm going to pick this. Fine. Sure. Okay. So now I can play with my typography. So I don't love the space here. So I'm going to grab this and I'm going to go ahead and adjust, all right, my tracking between my letters. And I want to make sure that I can pull up and kind of just, so here's your tracking right here. Okay, I just don't love that space, so I'm going to really bring it in. That's probably too much, you would think. All right. This way, I'm just not in love with that spacing. Let's go that way. All right, fine. Okay. So you're going to play with how this works. You decide what the viewer is going to see. So how you lay it out, okay, is really going to change what's going on. So I've got this, and I want to choose this same font, okay? And again, now I don't have to change the font size. I can just scale it, okay? So I could do something like this, right? And this isn't great, but you get the general idea, all right? And I can play with this. So you really want to kind of tweak your layout and really get to what you're doing, all right? And have a little bit of fun with it. You want to emphasize, you know, worry, happy, don't, you know, that type of thing. You pick the words you're going to emphasize. I could also really play with it. Okay, let me get this out of the way. I could take this. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to hold the shift key, and it allows me to snap rotate angles, okay? So I could do it this way. All right, so, and maybe in this case, I change this to this, okay? And I change this to this. All right. So now I have, don't worry. And you kind of visually make this look a little nicer, obviously, but the word be is just not great, is it? It's just a short word. All right. And it's not great. It's actually awful, but you get the idea. I could also take this. Be kind of interesting to go as I'm looking at it like that, but that doesn't really read right. Remember that we read left to right, top to bottom in America? So you want to look at that readability piece, okay? But the idea is I want you to do this. I want you to kind of just start messing around with how it works. You're so used to and so stuck to, you know, paragraphs of type and boring layout of type that you can really have a lot of fun. I wish I picked a better quote than "Don't worry, be happy," because that "be" is really killing me. But you can really kind of play with, you know, how that functions and how it works. Okay, and maybe I could just do something like this. Okay, I am visually trying to create a square because I just like it a lot better that way. I just don't also really don't love this font that much, but you can get the idea how I can start to play with this a little bit. Okay, so you really and in terms of using up, you really want to see, like, if this was my piece, which is really, you know, I don't need it to be as large as the F11. It fits better if it's centered. You could also use color, so you could just change the color to emphasize the words. All right, that helps it pop a little bit. You don't have to use color. You can't use any imagery, but if you needed to, you could use a box or a line, you know, to kind of visually fill out the space. All right, that's fine. Kind of adds a little something to it. All right, that's okay, but no artwork. Okay, no images. So lines are fine. Shape could be fine here or there. You don't want to go crazy. This is all about the typography, and it's all about pairing those two fonts. Okay. So that's what you're going to work on for this little activity. Again, I don't want it to take a ton of time. I'm going to give a classroom a classroom time to do it, 3 or 4 hours to work on it. I think that's more than enough time. All right. And so you're going to hand that particular piece in. You'll hand in your PDF, and I got to add that to this list. You're going to hand in your PDF to Google Classroom. All right. And that's where we're going to go with that. All right. So if you have any questions, just let me know. But that's the font pairing activity. Thanks.